Welcome, everybody, to episode number 5 of Indie Reads Aloud Radio. Today, we are going to be hearing from indie author Andrew Allen Smith. We're going to have a good time today. He's going to share some fun storytelling with us. Um, and maybe he'll come back again. He's got, Andrew, welcome. You've got 9, 10 books out now?
10.
10.
Yes.
Okay, so you can come back 9 more times.
Yay. By then I'll have more. Yay.
Yay,
It'll be
yeah,
fun.
good idea.
We'll be excited.
So, what is an author? Isn't that the question? Andrew looked at a bunch of definitions and was amazed at how varied they are across the net. He liked an author is the creator or originator of any written work, such as a book or play, and is also considered a writer. More broadly defined, an author is the person who originated or gave existence to anything. I love that. And whose authorship determines responsibility for what was created. From that, Andrew asserts that we are all authors of something. Gotta agree with you there, too. Andrew finds that passion takes his mind everywhere, and as it does, he writes. Andrew enjoys writing action, thrillers, mysteries, horror, young adult, and a lot more. In the end, all the stories are worth writing. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate you being here today with me.
Thank you for having me here today. And if I make funny faces, it's just for being funny and having this face. We're
We
good.
like your funny face. It's good. So, welcome to this wacky new show I'm doing. As you know, my goal is to share storytelling with readers and other authors and just casual listeners. What story will you be reading for us today?
Well, I'm going to read from a book that I have called A Slice of Fear. It was one of my best-selling books at shows last year. Not as much online, but at shows it sold really well because there's a lot of interest in things like true crime, and people are fascinated by fear. And so it's 15 short stories that are at varying levels of intensity. It goes from the relatively mild and meek to a little bit intense. Uh, and this particular story is relatively mild and meek.
Okay, what's the name of the story you'll be reading?
The name of the story is Safe,
Okay.
and it's about a little girl who solves her loneliness problem.
What was your favorite part about writing this particular story? I know that probably the whole collection has favorite parts for you, but this particular piece, what was your favorite part in it?
There are several things that draw me to this particular story. One of the things I like about the story is when I was younger, we moved constantly, and there was one house that we were in for a very short time that was extremely large, and it was a ton of fun to run around in that house. Also, my grandparents had a huge house. They were really my step grandparents, and you could get lost in it because it had secret areas and multiple staircases, and we would play and have fun with it and kind of get lost in the house. And it gave me great ideas. I love the story because sometimes it's hard to have a friend, and uh, I'm very drawn to a lot of stories where a friend shows up and takes care of everybody, takes care of everything too.
Excellent. Well, I would love it if you would read for us.
I can do that.
Yay!
We're going to have some fun with this, and if I get a little crazy, it's only because I am. So
That's
for,
perfectly all right. We welcome crazy on this podcast.
for everyone's pleasure, this is Safe from A Slice of Fear. Molly was alone again. Although Molly was only 8 years old, she liked being alone in their big house. It made her smile to walk up and down the long hallways between the two wings, and she laughed when she was home alone and could enjoy the thrill of sliding down the long spiral banister from the second floor to the first. Her parents said it was dangerous, but she loved the thrill of the ride down. And because the banister sloped at the end, she could slide to the floor and laugh. The first time she had slid down, she had fallen on her bottom. Not wanting to draw attention, she walked briskly for a few days, even though her bottom hurt a lot. It went away, and she practiced until she knew just when to slow down and just when to stop so she wouldn't fall. She had not fallen again. As Molly explored the old house her father had inherited from a grandparent, she became fascinated with all the toys all over the home. There were dolls and stuffed animals, trains, toy soldiers, and a multitude of other items that glistened, sparkled, and made noise so well that she just had to play with them. It was in one of the rooms that she had found Shelley. Well, she called the doll Shelley, but she really didn't know her name. The doll was old, beat up, and well-loved. It wore a simple red skirt and a white shirt worn with age. She had on tights with a small rip over her knee and black patent shoes. A small red necklace dangled from her neck with a heart on it. When she had found Shelley, she was under a bed in one of the upstairs back bedrooms, and as she held the doll, she just felt safe. Shelley had become her favorite companion, and as she walked from place to place, she carried Shelley everywhere. Shelley was never far from her side, and they had great fun sliding down the stairs together. So here again, they were alone, and Molly and Shelley were having a great time. "We will have so much fun tonight," Molly said to the doll. "Mommy and Daddy are gone again, and we can do whatever we want." It was a fun night already, and Molly and Shelley began running the halls from room to room, snooping like two sleuths. Molly's imagination ran wild, and her long, curly golden hair bounced on her shoulders, and she laughed with the little doll. Molly was good at being alone. A sound shattered the evening from the lower floors, and Molly was startled but curious. She ran to the stairs and with graceful ease took the banister down a floor and landed quietly. Lost in the moment, Molly raised her arms in a brief gymnast pose, but then remembered her reason for coming downstairs. Molly heard the crinkle of glass and held Shelley close to her as she crept closer, closer, until there, in front of her, two men were coming in the foyer window. The men were dressed in black and both were normal size, much smaller than her dad, but they looked mean. One was gruffy with blonde hair and skin so white that Molly wondered if he had ever been in the sun. The other was very dark, almost black as night. They both had on black hats as well, like they were trying to be part of the darkness. Molly ran back to the stairs and ran up them quickly. As she reached the top stairs, she turned and saw the two men at the bottom of the stairs. "It's okay, little girl. We just want to get something your daddy owes us. Why don't you come down here?" the very white man asked. "No," Molly said, and ran into the hallway upstairs, hearing the men running the stairs behind her. She was in one of the bigger bedrooms and looking for a way out, and set Shelley on the floor as she tried a duck. No luck. As she reached back to grab the doll, someone grabbed her hand. Molly looked, and a little girl was holding her hand. "This way," the little girl said, and led Molly to a wall. Touching the wall in the edge of the molding, a small door opened up. It looked like a wall, but it wasn't. The little girl led Molly into the wall and closed the doorway behind them. There was a dim light in this little area, and Molly looked up to see a vent above her. The room was long and narrow, and turning, she wondered if it went anywhere. She started to move, but the little girl softly grabbed her hand and put her finger to her lips. "Shh," she whispered. Molly understood and waited as she heard footsteps crashing around the room. They were obviously furiously looking for Molly, to no avail. Molly waited, and the sounds disappeared. The little girl smiled in the darkness. "We can go now," she said, and opened the door into the room. "Who are you?" Molly asked. The little girl in the skirt and white tights giggled. "Shelley, you silly." Molly gaped. "Shelley?" Molly looked at the girl in the white shirt, the locket with the heart, and the white tights and light brown hair. It was all there. But how could this be Shelley? Shelley led them to the edge of the room where they heard the men going through one of the other bedrooms. Race you, Shelley said. The two ran suddenly to the stairs, and Molly was determined to win. She grabbed the banister and swung her leg over, then slid down quickly. Shelley had done the same and was right in front of her. Well, in front of her was right. But they were both going down the stairs backwards quickly. There's two of them, they heard the voices as they reached the top of the stairs. The two men bounded down the stairs as Shelley and Molly rode the long banister. Molly was going faster and had to make the landing work. As she hit the end, she pushed out her legs so she would not fall, but tumbled over instead. She felt dizzy from the fall and saw Shelley land standing at the bottom of the stairs. The two men rushed for Shelley as they reached the first floor, and Molly felt dizzy. Shelley grew and grew, and a full-grown woman stood before the two men. And then Molly thought the woman reached for the men, and her hands were bone and ice. The darkness in the room seemed to seep in from the shadows and surround the woman as the two men tried to run. Their legs were frozen in place, and they looked at the woman in horror. The men screamed for a moment as the shadows left the woman and seemed to surround the men now. The room was cold for a moment, and the two men began to shake and shimmy like butter in a frying pan. The two men then fell to the ground, but neither looked the same. Their eyes were no longer looking at the room, but lost in something else, some scene only they could see, a scene they might never escape. Molly looked back up, but the woman was gone now, and the little girl, Shelley, was gone now too. Molly shook her head and walked towards the two men and saw her doll laying on the floor. She picked her up and ran to the door just as her mother and father walked in. Molly yipped a little. What's going on here? What happened to the window? Her father asked. Molly turned and looked at the men spasming on the floor. What on earth? Molly's mother asked. Molly just held her doll close and knew she was safe, safe from anything that could come for her.
Thank you very much. That was creepy. Super fun and super creepy.
I like creepy. Creepy.
You do creepy very well. So, Andrew, thank you so much for being here. Again, this is Safe from Andrew Allen Smith and his collection, A Slice of Fear. Jump to our show notes if you'd like to learn more about Andrew and his writing. There will be a link there to the book and how to get it, and there will also be a link to Andrew's website as well. Thank you, Andrew, for joining us. It was so great to hear your story today.
It was fun.
Have a wonderful night.